Welcome to Night Shadows. I'm Stuart Best, where the paranormal is normal, where that which you thought you knew, you didn't, and where the future can be known if you know exactly where to look. Well, good evening, everyone, and I'm Stuart. We have our updater, Larry, with us tonight, and I always appreciate all the work he does, bringing everything up to date for us. Hi, Larry. How are you doing tonight?
Hello, Stuart. Thanks for having me.
Oh, love to have you on. Where do we start with this thing? This deal with Trump, the electors. I'm beginning to wonder what exactly is going on. Are we being played like a fiddle here? If you go into Psalm 2, can I start with that? I think I want to read Psalm 2, just part of it. Why do the heathen rage and the people imagine a vain thing? The kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord and against his anointed, saying, let us break their bands asunder and cast away their cords from us. That's a pretty nasty statement coming from the Lord as to the opposition, if Trump is for real, as to what he's really facing, unless he's part of a grand scheme and he may not even know it. What do you think on that?
Well, that's interesting you said that because, ironically, Trump has been on this thank you tour going around every night someplace different in the country, and I've noticed he intentionally, apparently, is having Christmas background scenery behind him and telling the people, and it's also some rhetoric coming out of his team that there's been a war on Christians and Christmas, and that apparently his administration is going to confront that war. And so we're seeing some very interesting scenarios. To tie that in with Psalm 2, that simply could be some symbolic events tying in with Psalm 2 on the direction of this war. You know, a lot of this war is an unseen war. People can't really recognize or understand a lot of this warfare. But on the other hand, there are symbolisms that we can see and similitudes that we can pick up on, whether it's with the bots and what they say and speak, or if it's even like the Torah codes and different things. It seems like the lingo is there demonstrating that this war has two sides, a heavenly side and an earthly side, and it seems they're not that far apart anymore.
Well, what makes me think about it is if the Lord's hand is on Trump, which I believe at this point it obviously is, or he'd be dead already, unless this is all part of some grand scheme, some grand trick to throw the Christian world kind of into a period of relaxation when they should not be relaxed at all, or we're watching Trump take on the communist, Marxist, Fabian socialist world, which is basically now totally entrenched in all levels of government. And I believe the ISIL thing and the Muslim Brotherhood are all, nothing happens, it was said by accident. Of anything of importance was planned that way. And we did have that insider who said that they had selected Trump way back in 2013 to head this thing up. And, of course, like you have said, and I believe you're right, Trump's a wild card. Bibi Netanyahu is a wild card. Putin is definitely a wild card. So as to how far these guys are going to play along with the Psalm 2 conspiracy, I guess remains to be seen. What do you think?
Well, it reminds me a little bit, Stuart, and I know a lot of people don't like going here where I'm about to talk, but you know what I'm talking about. You look at the Yeah, you look at the old biblical wars and how that whoever was fighting, whatever king was fighting another king, or one city against another city, or the Israelites against the giants, or whatever. It seems like the unseen hand of the Lord was always in there maneuvering, and you had angelic, in the background. We've got all kind of stories through the Bible about, what I call smart rocks falling from the skies, and all kinds of stuff.
I love that terminology.
You really can't explain a lot of this, even though it's old biblical stuff. It's still almost unexplainable to our minds how all this could work that way. And I think we're seeing the very same thing going on today in modern times in the background. It's almost like, there was a grand scheme by the Lord before the flood, and it's like we're almost back to before the flood again scenario, and people can't comprehend that anybody in heaven is looking down here saying, hey, we got some things going on.
Yeah, wake up, maybe. Well, what I'm wondering about is Psalm 2. What they're talking about Psalm 2 is really the communist, Marxist, socialist, Illuminati war to get rid of the Christians, basically, and get rid of anybody they don't agree with, versus somebody like Trump who's coming along and saying, we don't want to go there. We're going to represent the people. We're going to take the nation back. It's almost like Esther, the story of Esther, and how she prepared herself because there was a plot to kill off the people of God back then, and so she made herself ready and presented herself to the king and stopped it. So is Trump sort of like an Esther?
Well, I don't know if he represents an Esther or a Persian king, but
Cyrus.
I'll tell you what's interesting. Yeah, Cyrus. I'll tell you what's interesting, though, Stuart, is some terminology I've been watching lately that is really, it's the strangest I've ever heard. It's just like there was a report came out today, I believe it was in the Yahoo News, and they were claiming that I was hunting my notes here. Here it is. Yahoo News reported today Ivanka Trump could be the most powerful first lady ever in history. And there were indications in that report that the left is scared to death of Ivanka Trump and that she'll have a powerful place in the White House. And for them to link her as the first lady, Melania is his wife. That's Cyrus's wife, or Donald, either way you want to put it. But
yes.
What's very interesting, even in the Torah code exchanges and what we've been talking about, even though Ivanka's husband, has the Torah ties and et cetera, she does too to a degree. And some, what I've been looking at a little bit, she also has the heritage, it appears. Now, why the fear of Ivanka Trump in the White House? We already know she couldn't really be the first lady. That's reserved for the mate of the president.
Yes.
Now, what is this great fear? Why all over the world is there a great fear and a watching and an outcry against Ivanka Trump? It's like nobody can say anything good about her, and the only thing I can come up with, Stuart, is it's just like Donald Trump. The Lord's hand must be upon him, and it is literally scaring the demons to death that have all these plans laid out of how to destroy all the Christian peoples and the Jews.
Yes. And the Lord is, it's kind of, how do I word this? It seems to me that the people of the world, the masses, the useless eaters, the cannon fodders, the rich men call us, the deplorables, they know something is coming. And I know I brought this up with Stan Dale about memory in the DNA, which would be not a conscious memory. It would just be a memory. of catastrophe. And it's almost like that memory within the DNA of people is being awakened, and they're restless. They know something's wrong. Do you think that that part of this has gone away? I don't. I think the vast majority of people are still very restless, even though Trump is really starting to change things. What say you on that part of it?
Well, I would almost liken it to, there's animals up here around me. Some of them are my own animals, and some of them are wild animals, and I watch them a lot. I watch animals, and I've noted a lot of times animals appear to be real jumpy. Now whether that's underground movement, storm on the way, earthquake somewhere that they can feel it a little bit, or it don't matter what it is. The wild animals or the animals, the tame animals, they demonstrate strange behavior, and I've almost begin to determine that it's almost like you said, the DNA or the nature, so to speak, of the animal, or it could be human, is feeling something. And I've noticed how sometimes my animals they're jumpy. They're just jumpy. There's no explanation for jumpy. It don't make sense to be jumpy, but they're jumpy, and they'll jump at me moving real quick, and that's really unusual. But I tie it back to this too. Dale News had a report today, and they were claiming that people reveal paranormal, terrifying events and encounters are happening now, and it's all over the world. And this came out of the Daily Mail of the UK, but the article indicated there are strange, odd, terrifying, paranormal, and your show is a paranormal show, but there's paranormal events, whether it's demonic, whether it's creature-wise, and there are reports, and you shared that with me a little bit about creatures, strange creatures under Antarctica possibly. And so are we approaching a place that's a line where you cross it, you can't go back anymore, and we're headed towards a total paradigm shift of everything on this planet?
I think we are, and I've tried to warn people before that, the vast majority of people may, how do I word this, nod at the scriptures, but they don't believe any of it. They don't really think it's, it's old wives' tales. It's interesting sometimes, but for the most part, I don't want to hear the name Jesus Christ, and I don't want to hear about the Bible, and I sure don't want to hear anything about religion. Well, my stand has always been, number one, I'm not religious, never was, never will be. I do not believe the Bible is a book about religion at all. It's about a rescue mission of a fallen humanity, and God, through Jesus Christ, gave us a way out of this mess if we would take it. And obviously from the scriptures themselves, mankind doesn't want to take it because they don't want to admit, number one, they got a problem, and number two, that they're a fallen creature. So you add all that up, and you can see this vast rejection, and even among the Christian denominations, they're not doing what the Lord told them to do. They're drifting further and further and further away. But the point I wanted to make, I guess, because we were talking about paranormal events, the Bible is the most paranormal book ever given to the human race. It's all about the paranormal. It's all about weird and strange things, and if people would really read it, they'd find it out. I mean, if you want to know about weird stuff, start studying your scripture, and you'll find all kinds of weird stuff in there. And it did say that we were going to see all kinds of weird things as the days of the end start to close in on us. So this report on Stan Deo's website doesn't surprise me at all that people are having all kinds of paranormal events. I mean, I've been living with this stuff for years, as you have. If you want to have paranormal events get real personal, start studying your Bible really closely and start believing it. And you'll find paranormal things start to happen to you personally. because there is a spirit here that doesn't want anybody to really get into that and study that. And as you know, in your ministry and mine, weird things happen virtually every week, if not every day. And then they're unexplainable unless you go along with what Stan probably has written. He's talking about creatures, I presume. Is that what that was about? I didn't see it, so.
Well,
was that about
the report out of the report out of the Daily Mail that he had posted was basically talking about it was a mix of demonic, alien, like the Greys, abductions. It seems like there's an incredible increase in UFO activity, the paranormal activity of creatures, and whether they're, and even in the cyber realm, there are weird stories. There are weird things beginning to happen, and this is what's strange, Stuart, and I'll link it into this and get your opinion. But, mankind, you and I both have been talking about fallen mankind for a long time, and humanity just simply doesn't want to believe that. And I think that they would much rather lean towards a Prometheus-type creation of mankind, and maybe instead of mankind being fallen, Stuart, maybe we've just been, as humanity, misplaced for a while. And maybe our masters are going to return and actually find us and maybe fix everything. And then back in the back of my mind, though, Stuart, I continue to remember the old Twilight Zone cookbook, To Serve Man.
Yes. I love that story because that's basically where it's at. The human race has to make up its mind. I think the vast majority, as you and I both, I think, believe that basically people have already decided yay or nay, and that's about over. But the ones who said nay are really in for a major surprise. And I don't know what to say beyond that. The fallen part of this, I'm not sure people understand the basics. And if you don't get down to the foundation, you're going to get everything messed up. But the foundation is, number one, humanity is a fallen creature. Number two, he needs to be redeemed. He was purchased. A lot of people just can't buy that. So instead, like you were saying, they opt that Jesus was really just an ascended master, somebody that came here to show us the way, teach us a few things, a great ethical teacher, a great moral teacher, but redemption, not ever. We don't need to be redeemed, and that is where baseline zero is. Either the human race needs to be redeemed by a redeemer, or it doesn't. And people have to make their choice, yay or nay. And anybody who studies the Bible at any length at all would come to the conclusion, I believe, that the redemption of the human race was an absolute requirement, because when the human race fell, it was classified as an enemy of the Creator. They were given an option. They chose the wrong option. I mean, people make mistakes all the time, but humanity made a great mistake back then, and we're just paying for it. And although people cannot realize, why should I pay for it? I was born into this. It wasn't my choice. Well, it may not have been any of our choices, but we do have the option of finding out the real truth or ignoring it. And I guess the vast majority of people are just ignoring the fact that they are fallen. They need a Redeemer. His name is the Lord Jesus Christ, and he redeemed by the blood of the Lamb, basically. And they just don't want to believe that. They say that's an old, ancient blood religion, and it has no place in modern society. And instead of demons and the Muslim jinn, as they call them, we now have aliens from other planets who have come here and seeded us, and like you said, they're going to come back and see how we're doing. And those that aren't doing very well are going to be eliminated. because they're cancerous. And we can't have cancer in the human race. We got to eliminate it. Am I right there, or do you think, or am I way off track?
No, I think you're accurate in that, and at the same time, there seems to be a parallel warning that seems to be coming out of Deo and Tom Horn and you and Velikovsky and all warning about some type of wave that is coming. And recently, Tom Horn, they're very concerned because they say that this wave will generate a frequency that will literally change the DNA of what's on the planet as it approaches. That it'll begin a DNA change in humanity. So
now we got a choice. Some people go, we heard all about the zombies, right? The U.S. government, the military talked about, they even ran military exercises about zombies. Then the CDC was talking about zombies. England talked about zombies. Do you suppose this wave is going to make people go in one or two directions? A raise in consciousness or virtually elimination of it, depending on where you are. I mean, you got to ask the question, why would the CDC present such stuff? Now, they're a major government agency. Why would they be talking about zombies? Why would the U.S. military be doing exercises that are training them to fight zombies? And England got into the act as well. Why would they do that if there's nothing to it? So do they know? At first I thought, well, they can chemtrail it and they can make people all into zombies through some virus or whatever. Maybe they know that that's not what the case is at all. Maybe it's this coming galactic superwave or this Cygnus 404 wave that's soon approaching. And they know this is going to go two ways for people, up or down. What do you think? I mean, that's a possibility.
Well, Stuart, that kind of dovetails into the last 5 or 6 years. There's been a zombification of movies, and it's just like the Spielberg movies about the aliens and all this. It seems to be just it's a zombie craze that's out there. It's everywhere. And zombie movies are incredible. Now, I don't like them, but a lot of people just think they're incredibly powerful, and you've got the air is full of them. Not the zombies particularly, maybe, but the movies. And at the same time, this is what's interesting is, like you said, there's been so much drills of some kind about zombies, zombification, and it reminds me, Stuart, a lot of your wife having that dream that time, that they had to, for safety, they had to climb up on old buildings or up on old structures to try to be safe. And I've wondered many a time, and you see that in zombie movies. That plays out in zombie movies a lot.
Yeah, what was that latest one they had where Israel was one of the last to go in that movie?
That was World War Z. That was it, World War Z. And this is what's interesting, too, to me, is the symbology of all Israel was saved basically because of their wall that they had. And now, all over the world, people are building. I heard France has started a wall now. They're constructing a wall. Now, they don't want, of course, Trump to build a wall. But all over the world, everybody's building walls. And I find it so amazing. But it was World War Z. And I guess Z stood for zombie, and it's intriguing.
It is. Here's an article by Dr. Michael Salla. I'll just read a little bit of it. Cosmic energies predicted to trigger DNA changes and disclosure events. And it more or less says that this would be to increasing, according according to independent sources, the Earth is moving into a region of the galaxy that is leading to increasing cosmic energies impacting our sun and altering human DNA. A wave of evolution. What we're about to find out on a major level, unheard of in history, at a mass scale, is the true answer of who are we, where do we come from, and what is our purpose. Now, having said that, let me read something to you. And this comes from, well, first of all, let me read this, and I want your comment on this. This comes from Project Bluebeam. The first step, he's talking about the steps that the rich men of the earth, Psalm 2, want to take. The first step concerns the breakdown of all archaeological knowledge. It deals with the setup of earthquakes at certain precise locations of the planet where supposedly new discoveries, where if we heard that about Antarctica, will suddenly explain for them the wrong meaning of all major religions' basic doctrines. The classification used to make the population believe that all religious doctrines have been misunderstood and misinterpreted have already started with the field of psychological preparation for populations. For the first step has already been prepared through films like 2001, A Space Odyssey, Star Trek, Star Wars, which deals with space invasion, space protection, and the last film, Jurassic Park, dealing with the theory of evolution. And of course, we got into that, I think, the last time we were on the air, that evolution is a lie. The Bible teaches broad-ranging adaptation within species, but it does not at all go along with this evolution concept. So there you kind of got it. If you're evolving, you don't need a redeemer. But if you're fallen, you do. And so there's your parting point. And all of this to me is Psalm 2, right? Is that what you would say?
Oh, I would absolutely say that. Psalm 2 just, the Psalm 2 war basically is a war to erase the Redeemer and its relationship with humanity. I mean, basically.
Yes, exactly. Well said. Here, I want to read something else to you. This is from the bots, because this all goes together. In the usual processing for these reports, it is expected that 14% of terror entity supersets data will run to strange weather. Well, we already got that, right? We got strange weather. And then they said the larger than expected strange weather sets have a proportionate amount of crosslinks over to space goat entity, which many of the terminating sets are space focused. And we will have sets for space weather intruding. What are we talking about? Cosmic waves and space phenomena of multiple kinds that will be causing alarm and concern, and also impacting planetary weather. Then he says the Antarctica sets within the terror entity are forecasting very large changes for the southern continent. The data shows that Antarctica is going to grow lopsided over the southern hemispheric summer of 2017. These sets suggest that the Earth changes within the planet are expansion-driven and will be making their appearance. Well, they already have. I'm sure you saw that article on a gigantic rift in the Pacific.
Yeah.
So what do you think about that concept? I mean, this thing all seems to dovetail together. Don't you think?
Well, it does. Yeah, it does, Stuart. And what's interesting, we're hearing there's been a lot of weather changes in the Arctic, And, of course, right now we're having the Arctic weather down over the USA going south. And at the same time, in Antarctica, I saw where they've got a massive chasm and another section of that ice coverage of Antarctica, the continent, that is about to break off as big as a state and go out into the ocean there. And then at the same time, I saw Mitch Burgess the other day make a report that it seems the polar shift are also, and which also involves the polar shift of geomagnetically was also moving faster than normal. This is moving really quick, and it's at both poles. Everything's changing at those poles, and what you're reading with the bots, this is amazing what the bots are bringing out, because that seems to be where we're going.
Well, here's something else from them. Deep revelations about human history. What did we just read? Human history that are forecast to be coming from planetary expansion events. What did Bluebeam say? They're going to come out of earthquakes and discoveries that are made after the earthquakes. What do we got for Antarctica? Earthquakes. At the core of these sets, data is showing that planetary, including climate alterations, are going to expose human and others, now that's an interesting phraseology, history, in ways so shocking and deeply emotional as to alter humanity's view of itself. Well, what did we read in Project Bluebeam? It's identical.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's so interesting is Jonathan Gray. I think I forwarded you that report, and I sent one to Richard.
Yeah, get into that a little more.
Yeah, which indicated, according to Jonathan Gray, that for a number of years now, they have been excavating something about 2 miles deep under Antarctica, or under that, the surface of Antarctica. And it's amazing to me, and it almost seems to tie together with other events, whether it's the Golden Mirror, whether it's the Heavener Runestone, all these coal mines, like in Russia, in Heavener and other places where they're finding about 2 miles down ancient structures, buildings, walls, cities, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you may be right. They may be excavating either the technology of what they think is the gods, and of course it would be technology of the fallen angels and the civilization pre-flood.
That's what I'm thinking. They're going to dig this stuff up, and they're going to say, see, what you've really been taught in high school and college and grade school isn't true. We're not a fallen race. This proves it. We have many different races have been here. Well, if you read Genesis carefully, it sort of says go forth and replenish. Well, you don't replenish something unless something was there, right, and taken away, and now you're supposed to go out and refill it. Is that correct?
Exactly. I think you hit the nail on the head right there, replenish.
So if we're going to replenish, what was here before?
Yeah.
So, when the Bible says that the strong delusion, let me read that if I can. Let me find it, because this all fits together. I think it's absolutely important. People really begin to understand what's going on here. Well, here's Isaiah 66:4 to start with. This is the Lord speaking. I will choose their delusions. He's speaking about humanity that has ignored the Bible, and the Bible's way out of this, and will bring their fears upon them. Because when I called, none did answer. When I spake, they did not hear. But they did evil before mine eyes, and chose that in which I delighted not. Then you go to 2 Thessalonians. This is the wicked one. And then shall that wicked be revealed, whom the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth, and shall destroy with the brightness of his coming, even him whose coming is after the working of Satan, with all power and signs and lying wonders, and with all deceivableness of unrighteousness in them that perish, because they receive not the love of the truth, that they might be saved. Now that's interesting, because then it says, and for this cause God shall send them strong delusion, that they shall believe a lie, that they all might be damned, who believed not the truth, but had pleasure in unrighteousness. So here we go. They're digging up something in Antarctica, which the bots say is going to destroy religion. In other words, this has got to be something really big.
Well,
that is gonna,
I was just gonna insert this right there where you just stopped for a second, and see what you thought of this. You know, what's interesting is the steady flow, it seems, of world leaders, and you know, we're talking even Putin and like Buzz Aldrin and you know, astronauts. You know, we're talking all kind of people that have been slowly going down to Antarctica. I'm sure they don't go down to look at the ice. I'm positive about that.
Probably not.
Yeah, you could go to the North Pole for that if you needed to find it. But you know what is going on? That even they said even the Pope and an entourage went down there. Now that might really what religious leader, what kingdom of religion would be really of a change, a paradigm shift of knowledge to where maybe they become irrelevant? It's odd. What do you think the Pope would go down to Antarctica to look at?
Well, I think they know. They've been hiding a lot of stuff, and I think they've known for some time. And now, evidently, because they want to destroy, and you know, Psalm 2 is very explicit, the leaders, the authorities of the world all together. It doesn't leave out anybody. It doesn't say, well, except for America, or except for Brazil, or except for Israel, or except for whoever. It says they're all in this together. And what's the reason? That's why I read Psalm 2. To get rid of God the Father, Jesus Christ, and the Holy Ghost, along with the Muslim world, the Jewish world, to come in with this Luciferian religion that man is all there is, basically. And what would that do now if they dig up all of this stuff, release it? And it counters everything that people thought. Now, that ne'er-do-well Noise from Phoenix Rising, she said beings are going to come and have proof. Here, let me just read it to you because it's kind of fascinating and it's deadly. She talks about the church getting involved in stuff with disagreements and intrusions into the government. And Noise then starts by saying, that only begins stuff. That begin people's questions. People's going to see stuff they no longer believe before. What are we talking about?
Yeah.
What does Bluebeam talk about? Oh, we're going to have earthquakes, and it's going to reveal all kinds of good stuff. Okay, so then she says, people's going to ask questions. And then she says, people's going to see new beings. Beings going to come more, much more. They come from there. She points to the sky. You mean alien beings, the UFO, Mary says. Then she says something about, what's the matter? Don't you agree that it would be a good thing? And Noah says, well, maybe, but then again, maybe not. It'd be good when people believe because they're going to see with their own eyes. They're going to have to believe. It'd not be good when people's going to question state about stuff state already knew about long time. They're going to be plenty angry at state. They're going to want to know why state hides stuff from peoples. This is going to make peoples no trust state. I'm not done here, she says. She got interrupted. People's going to question church now. How about what church say about spirits? How about what church say about first man, first woman? Some are that no stand up now. People's going to be much angry at church even. I think she's telling you what this is all about. A total repudiation of the Bible. Do you think?
Yeah, that sounds like the ultimate cover-up, doesn't it, actually?
Yeah, it does. And the more you read from the bots, this thing, I think this is going to get really, really serious real quick. About the deep revelations, and he says here, as we progress through December, we barely get moving when we hit a belief-shattering obstacle. Sets are referencing a point of action that occurs that disrupts the general understanding or belief or point of view of people, I guess. However, please note that there are many sets that accrue from this point onward as we move through December into the new year about Antarctica, and their geographic references. A number of sets that are growing and supporting positions within the death of organized religion. The Antarctica sets exempted the growth and the death of religion. Main supporting sets is all about corruption and organized, sanctioned, and sanctified pedophilia. In other words, people, this Pizzagate stuff is the trigger that causes people to become sick to their stomach about all the religious leaders and the fakery. And, as you know, I have more or less said that I think almost all these religions are control. That's all they're for. They're control people. They don't have a whole lot to do with the truth at all. The only way you're going to find the truth is do what Jesus Christ told you to do, and they don't want to do that, of course. That'd be a no-no. That's basically an anathema to do what you're told. Anyway, this is all going to grow, he says, from December 20th onward. Isn't that interesting?
Wow.
So
yeah, it's and alongside all of that too is space weather. They're reporting another huge coronal hole is moving around, facing the Earth, and they're expecting more space impact that goes along with the bots, December the 20th to the 22nd.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in that same time frame you just spoke of.
Wow. Well, here's another one for you to comment on. The initial rush of ancient knowledge and facts shows up in the European population core peoples as creating consternation, disbelieving reactions, as the data is forecasting that the religious roots of the core peoples will be shaken out by all the new information. We note that the new information is not merely about prelates or behaving horribly, or about donations to the church being used to cultivate global pedophilia, but are showing core beliefs will be undone as the ruling elite are seen to panic and let slip out facts that are mind-shattering. And it goes all the way back to Antarctica. What do you think? There's something going on down there.
Yeah. It reminds me a lot, Stuart, of, you remember Red Elk used to warn about those things underground. He said sooner or later they really are going to break out, that a lot of explosions underground is our own military trying to block the entrance to the surface of the planet to these beings, and he had a lot of information and stuff like that.
Well, here's somebody that wrote us on a comment. Great show. It was the first comment. Antarctica. Listen to this one. My dad, during World War II, said the transport ship that he was on went to Antarctica, dropped soldiers off. came back to get them. Never said why. Maybe he knew or was told not to tell. Unfortunately, he has Alzheimer's now, but he also said there were flying ships that came out of the ocean when he was out at sea. Also knew about Project Paperclip. Now, the bots indicate that the deep state, we could call black operations, are operating out of Antarctica. And didn't Stan Dale, if I'm remembering this right, say that they were operating out of there? If I remember?
Yeah, that's true.
And so he was working with Edmund Teller at the time. So there's a whole lot, and the bots talk about this. And here's what it says. This is kind of interesting. Appearing within the curious nature of the appearance of Antarctica sets way back in 1997. They were having this show up. There's really no chatter about the continent in general. May finally be making some sense. Data sets are now saying that there is a huge level of Antarctica focus within the deep, dark UFO reverse engineering state. The Antarctica sets have always held a very high level of emotional support in spite of the total lack of population within that region, and the data is now saying that this may be due to an unseen level of human activities that are actually occurring around the Antarctica language associations. So they're talking about that there's a lot of activity going on down there. Where are they getting this from? Remember where Germany got theirs?
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think that's really interesting. I was trying to remember back as you was talking there. Remember way back there was a lot of movement down around Antarctica, and years ago they began to kind of cover that up with saying they were building a new highway in Antarctica, of all places.
Yeah, right.
A new truck route, so to speak. And then later, it seemed like when more news about Antarctica was going on, they began to put up that, well, there may be some telescopes down there now that can really view something that could be incoming,
yes,
et cetera. And that was a few years ago. We heard about that. We even saw images of strange phenomena down there and the craft in the sky, and also, some sky objects too, which who knows how you could vet them. But, now we seem to be, and it seems like the bots picked up on this some time ago, but now it seems to be increasing.
Yeah, and who knows what they're actually working into or who they're working with, and why all of a sudden are we getting all these leaks of pyramids and structures buried in the ice, and that they're digging down in, and they're going to find out. To me, it all goes back to Project Bluebeam and earthquakes and new discoveries, all of which are designed to destroy Christianity utterly, just obliterate it. Well, look, you guys are idiots that believe this kind of stuff. Look, we've got the proof. Here it is. Your history is so much different than what you've been taught. Like Noah says, what about first man, first woman? That no longer stand up now. In other words, it's all been obliterated. And mankind, again, it gets right back to the basis, doesn't it? Mankind is not fallen. Mankind is simply evolving. And now we know what our real history was. What do you think?
Well, it might also dovetail, Stuart, into, you remember Moldashev, the Russian explorer that found these creatures, that was in suspended animation, in the Himalayas, and also there have been reports from a number of people over the years of finding something similar in different parts of the world, and possibly even Antarctica. Deep underground in these caverns, finding and I remember one too. I remember the one when we brought out years ago about Romania, that there was a secret tunnel system and caverns under Romania, and the military went over there even to try to get into that thing, and it had an energy field similar to the one in the Himalayas.
Yes.
So and recently L.A. Marzulli found this conehead-looking, or extended skull peoples, the remains of those, which really didn't seem to fit at all into the human, the human history. So
yes.
Are they going to really come out and say first man, first woman? Well, what about all these other folks?
Exactly. I think it dovetails right into that, exactly. And I don't know. I mean, this is going to be very weird. Here's something else from the bots. The USA population entity area is forecasting a very large and initially puzzling focus on Antarctica by the ruling elites. This is described as a level of the deep state and is independent of government. However, the data does have incoming government to be shocked, that would be Trump, by unknown in or from Antarctica. There are sets indicating very strange form of divergence by the new government as having to build a response to the unknown Antarctica problems, issues, or the discoveries that are made there, obviously. Wow. So this would indicate that they're about ready to bring forward the strong delusion and how it relates to the arrival.
Well, then on the other hand, Stuart, what is this strange anomaly with ISIS? I don't know if you've been following it closely, but I have. Palmyra and, whether it's Iraq or Syria or wherever, ISIS has been busily deconstructing or totally destroying even the ziggurat. And all of this ancient artifacts, buildings, the petroglyph type, they're destroying everything that shows any history on this planet. Now, I know they're really weird folks, but what is causing them to feel that they have to destroy history? I mean, is this thing? Is there a spiritual? Is there a demon over this? Is there a spiritual entity directing this? And people are zombifying and picking up on it all over the planet and working the same direction?
Sounds like it. I mean, Satan would have a great interest in simply clearing the earth of what he would think are false religions, false history, to bring about what he's about to release from Antarctica and elsewhere. And who knows? There was a guy that claimed I can't remember if it was his father or grandfather, on his deathbed, told him the story about how he had been down in Antarctica, and he was with the military, and he had been a guard there, and they often saw these creatures, which he said were as tall as a telephone pole.
Wow.
That would come in and out of the hole. He called them demonic creatures. He said it was a gateway to hell, is what he termed it. So what are we dealing with down there that is both maybe a portal, an alien race that they're about now to introduce? What do you think?
Well, even before World War II, with Hitler, what drew Hitler to all this, what we call occult or hidden or esoteric?
Yes.
What's this search for the unknown? What drew even Hitler to Antarctica? Why? And so even after him, all the other Russia, the Russian researchers, the American researchers, the Pope and his researcher people, the Jesuits and other nations. Why all these nations in Antarctica now, too, centered around whatever's under there?
Yeah, that's kind of interesting, along with Admiral Byrd and Operation High Jump. He goes down there theoretically just as an exploration, but he went down there with military, and a lot of military. And he comes home with his tail between his legs. And then it was MacArthur who said the next war is going to be fought with not entities, but flying craft that can go from pole to pole very rapidly. So what did MacArthur know that's not being told to the American people? So I can see where, boy, if this is revealed, can you imagine what a delusion this is going to be to the masses who have rejected the Bible, who don't even understand? As far as I know, now maybe you can correct me here, isn't the Bible the only ancient book that really talks about a delusion being cast down upon humanity?
Yeah, I think so. I think the Bible's the only one that really gives humanity a warning of a delusion that's coming so great that people can't escape it. That's interesting. The only book, and the Bible's the only book, Stuart, that the whole world wants to rid themselves of.
I know. It's amazing. Well, why would entities come, and this is not my quote, this is from somebody else, but why would they come from thousands of light years away to planet Earth just to really rail upon the Lord Jesus Christ? They don't rail upon any other religious leader, but they sure rail against his name. They can't stand that name. And so people really ought to begin to examine, well, why not? Why wouldn't people ask the question, why is it they're always coming against that name? They don't come against Buddha. They don't come against anybody else. They just come against that one name. You would think that would make people wonder, what is there about that name that's so disturbing? What do you think?
Yeah. Oh, I think you're exactly right. Maybe. Well,
we're running out of time.
Very accurate. Yeah, maybe Jesus was very accurate when he said, when you see all these things, we're seeing so many things I can't count them anymore.
I know. Before we close down here, any more news on this coup within a coup with Trump? I mean, this is getting serious. Yeah,
it's very interesting. We're watching Monday to see what happens with the electors, and there appears to be, you asked me, why does Trump have so many generals around him? And I heard he just appointed another one. So there is some really interesting stuff going on behind the scenes in America and American politics and America's government.
Yeah, I know. And I don't think people realize how serious this is, particularly if the electors throw this to the Congress to decide who's going to come in. Maybe that's the bot's third person that comes in, and I don't know. We'll just have to watch and wait. But, folks, we are coming to the end of things. Larry, would you agree with that or not?
Oh yeah, we're definitely in the end times. Even though people don't want to think about that, we're very, very close on the edge of that.
Yeah. Well, how do people reach you again?
Oh, the quickest way is my blog, LarryWTaylor.org. That's LarryWTaylor.org.
Well, I sure appreciate you coming on and sharing all this because, I really do believe that there's coming some strange stuff. And the bots, we might not like to think about that kind of stuff as being accurate or worthwhile, but boy, are they accurate now. Makes you wonder how come they're being so accurate. Any closing remarks you'd like to make?
I guess we'll just keep our eyes on Antarctica, and I do know that Richard said he's checking with some people on some Antarctica information, so we'll be waiting to see.
Yeah, there's definitely something going on out there, and folks, you better get ready, brace yourselves. I think some information's coming along that's really going to change everything. Anyway, thank you and good night. Take care.